Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Greetings from the Adaptation Fund. It's a great pleasure to join you through this message. As the funder of the Adaptation Fund Climate Innovation Accelerator, or AFCIA, we're very excited to see this special financing program being launched. It's very timely during these challenging times of the COVID-19 pandemic that have affected all of us, especially the most vulnerable that were already hit hard by climate change. This program will reach a diverse set of stakeholders and those affected directly on the ground. Over the last 13 years, the Adaptation Fund has been at the forefront in the transition from business as usual development to climate change adaptation. The fund has been pioneering concrete projects on the ground and innovative climate finance modalities such as direct access, which empowers countries in taking ownership in adaptation. Very often Adaptation Fund projects have been the first adaptation actions in many vulnerable places throughout the world and have created innovative models that were replicated or scaled up with financing from additional sources. However, adaptation finance only represents a small fraction of all climate finance, and it isn't enough to meet developing countries' global adaptation needs. So we need to take innovation a step further to help meet the scale and speed of climate change. The Adaptation Fund made innovation one of its three strategic pillars alongside action and learning and sharing, and has established a dedicated innovation facility. The facility is aligned with the Paris Agreement, which calls accelerating, encouraging, and enabling innovation, which is critical for an effective global response to climate change. The Innovation Facility already offers a small innovation grant program to the fund's national implementing entities, or NIEs, through direct access, and that is available for those 32 countries that have accredited an NIE. We see these grants already making a difference, such as in Chile, where a project is demonstrating innovative solutions to improve urban water security. AFCIA adds a new opportunity under the facility to develop and test innovative adaptation practices and technologies and generate an evidence base to scale up effective solutions. What is special about AFCIA is that it is designed to reach a broad range of potential grant recipients, including vulnerable countries that do not yet have NIEs, as well as NGOs, community groups, local governments, young innovators, entrepreneurs, and others. We are very happy to join forces with UNDP, UNEP, and CTCN, who will administer these exciting new grants. We have long-standing partnerships with each of them, and they all do great work. We look forward to working together to accelerate innovation in adaptation. Thank you very much.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be with you today at this launch for the Adaptation Fund Climate Innovation Accelerator. This is an incredibly important event for an important program that we at UNDP are extremely proud to be a part of. The Adaptation Fund Climate Innovation Accelerator is a new $10 million small grants program to foster innovation and learning for adaptation in developing countries. Let me start by first thanking all participants, co-conveners, and partners, especially our donor, the Adaptation Fund, for their strong commitment and support over many years in assisting vulnerable countries around the world to adapt to climate change. Climate change adaptation is no longer a threat of the distant future. It is something that we face today. It's here and now. And we need to start doing everything we can to adapt to the challenges that climate change brings with it. This year alone, we have experienced unprecedented wildfires in places such as the Congo, Brazil, Bolivia, even in developed countries such as Australia, in regions such as California. Crippling droughts have been experienced across the Horn of Africa. Deadly storms and floods have been felt in places such as Bahamas, Philippines, Honduras, and countries such as Japan. The pandemic has further devastated lives, livelihoods, and economies, further exacerbating the climate change vulnerabilities across the globe. If we do not act urgently and in building forward better, focusing on the resilience of the most vulnerable, there is potential to derail decades of hard-won human development gains. By 2030, climate change alone could drive an additional 100 million people back into poverty and derail efforts to reach targets outlined in the Sustainable Development Goals as well as the Paris Agreement. How can we tackle the daunting task of protecting people and planet in the face of these multiple crises? Innovation at the local level is key to enabling transformative adaptation action. The innovation that we are looking for is not limited to technologies, but also practices, business models, and most importantly, behavioral changes that catalyze adaptation solutions and build adaptive capacities for the long term. Local and community-based action has been at the heart of our work with vulnerable communities for well over 30 years. Since 2008, UNDP has supported about 100 countries mobilize, leverage, and catalyze a combined $4 billion of grant funding to advance adaptation at the local level, building resilient livelihoods for over 80 million people. For instance, UNDP has supported more than 6.3 million smallholder farmers in building climate-smart agriculture practices, incorporating new technologies in water harvesting, diversifying crops and incomes, and developing markets for climate-resilient crops. UNDP has supported initiatives to improve ecosystem management and promoting weather-based insurance programs as part of the suite of measures to help with adaptation. Linking these actions on the ground to the policies that countries formulate is critical, and UNDP continues to support countries to take lessons learned locally and integrate them into policies, strategies, and plans, as well as budgets at the national, subnational, and local level. The Adaptation Fund project and the UNDP platform is an incredibly important piece of the overall offer that UNDP presents to countries to deal with these challenges. I'm pleased that today, in collaboration with the United Nations Environment Programme and CTCN, the Adaptation Fund supported Climate Innovation Accelerator is another that we can lean on to support countries. The UNDP platform will focus on sourcing the best ideas from around the world, building on its extensive network, supporting innovations with financing and technical assistance, and facilitating learning to replicate and scale up adaptation solutions with the most impact at the local level. It will play a critical role in catalyzing finance for innovative adaptation solutions, connecting local actors and enterprises, as well as investors, to transform solutions that impact communities and have scalable possibilities. With finance and technical support linked to enabling policy support, UNDP will seek to de-risk investments to bring to market, as well as scale innovative technologies and practices for adaptation. By supporting peer-to-peer learning, networking, and partnerships, this project will provide an incredibly important opportunity to create a thriving marketplace for adaptation solutions, crowding in public and private sector for adaptation action. Transformative adaptation is only possible by ensuring that communities, enterprises, and local actors are at the heart of driving this change. With this initiative, I'm confident that we will empower local communities around the world, as well as other key stakeholders, to innovate and to take decisive action to accelerate adaptation, especially contributing to building back better. I wish you all a fruitful launch and look forward to working with our partners in making this initiative a success with sustained impact on the ground.
Thank you for the opportunity to share some reflections today. The urgency of climate change is obviously well understood, as is the fact that it'll take no less than transformative action to adequately address it. In the recent publication, United in Science 2020, it reported that the emissions gap in 2030 is estimated to be between 12 and 15 gigatons of carbon dioxide to reach the 2-degree target. And for the 1.5 degree target, it's estimated to be closer to 30 gigatons. This is roughly equivalent to the emissions of the 6 largest emitters. Now, this is a gap that we can still close, but it's going to require rapid and transformative actions. And even while we work to achieve this, we know that climate change is already happening, and that's why we have to focus on adaptation. According to UNEP's latest emission gap report, adaptation is expected to cost between 140 and 300 billion annually by 2030. And by 2050, it's going to be up to nearly 500 billion. To meet these costs, governments are going to need the right physical incentives and regulatory signals for the financial sector to invest in research and development of adaptation that meets the needs of vulnerable people. And that's why UNEP is delighted, together with UNDP, to be administering the Adaptation Fund Climate Innovation Accelerator. While UNDP will administer grants for innovative projects, UNEP CTCN will provide technical assistance on the design and implementation of these chosen projects. And this will provide that much needed know-how and funding to an area that typically gets less attention than the mitigation side of climate change. In the process, it'll help to improve the lives of people who are already living with the consequences of climate change. Now that the accelerator is open for business, UNEP will spread the word among our many networks to attract really promising projects. And we stand ready to contribute to these valuable ongoing efforts in order to respond to the consequences of climate change. Thank you for the opportunity to share these remarks, and I wish you the best of luck in the workshop.
Hello, my name is Salimul Haq. I'm the director of the International Center for Climate Change and Development at the Independent University Bangladesh in Dhaka, here where I'm speaking from. And I work on the issue of locally led adaptation amongst vulnerable communities, both in urban and rural settings, in Bangladesh, in South Asia more broadly, and in the least developed countries in Asia and Africa. And one of the big issues with working with vulnerable communities is the lack of access that the communities have to either funding or advice or knowledge or any kind of support. And it's extremely important, but also at the same time quite difficult to find out exactly what is needed and what can be provided and supported in those communities without looking at them as simply beneficiaries or targets. We have to recognize their ability, their knowledge, their experience, and then try and build on that in order to help them develop there. So it's extremely heartening to know about this new initiative by UNDP that is going to be able to enable these kinds of grassroots communities who are working on climate change at the local level, at the impacts level, at the front lines of the climate problem, to be able to access international support at the global level from the likes of the UNDP new innovation program. One of the opportunities we will have in the coming months to enable this community to link up with the UNDP initiative is the annual Gobeshona conference that we organize. Gobeshona is a Bangla word for research, and the Gobeshona platform is a platform of researchers and decision makers and grassroots level organizations who will be meeting from the 21st to the 24th of January 2021, next year. We used to meet as a physical event here in Dhaka, Bangladesh at my university over the last 6 years. Next year will be our 7th year, but from next year we are making this into a virtual event, and it's also going to become a global event, not just a Bangladesh focused event. And the global event theme is going to be on locally led adaptation, and we will have many different organizations, groups providing and sharing information across the world. So we will do it across 24 hours over 4 days with different sessions aimed at different parts of the world, from the Pacific in the east to South Asia, and then Middle East, Eastern Africa, Western Africa, Europe, and then the Americas, Latin America, and the North American continent as well. It'll be running over 24 hours with sessions aimed at these different localities and geographies, and linking up grassroots initiatives either by the communities themselves or by intermediaries or NGOs or UN agencies or research institutions, and try to link us all up together across the world so that we can learn from each other and expand and rapidly escalate the activities that we are doing in order to adapt to the impacts of climate change, because we have no time to lose. This year, 2020, we are stepping into a climate change world, and we have very little time to deal with that impacts of climate change. And so we have to scale up all our activities as fast as we can. And that is something that I am very, very eager to pursue. And I hope to work with UNDP in doing that going forward. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Joshua Anfonzin. I'm from Ghana. I'm a climate activist and an advocate for youth engagement in adaptation planning, policy formulation, and implementation. Over the past years, the manifestation of extreme weather events are pushing young people to really think about their future. Not just their future, but the future of also generations that are yet to come. It's pushing young people to think about the ecosystem that we depend on as humans. These are not making young people just beneficiaries of government intervention and interventions of stakeholders, but also allowing young people to draw upon their increasing access to climate science information, their increasing access to digital technologies, to really bring up innovations that are needed to radically transform the system and bring solutions that are needed to protect our lives today and in the future. Young people are the forefront of developing solutions that are needed to secure their futures. And it's essential that they get the support that they need to be able to accelerate these solutions, operationalize and scale these solutions. Today, at the launch of the Climate Innovator Accelerator Fund, it is a brilliant opportunity for stakeholders to really acknowledge young people as equal in sharing ideas, as equal in innovating, as equal in developing solutions, and to support their commitment in driving adaptation action. It's also an opportunity for young people to mobilize, come together, and put their ideas forward to be able to access this innovative fund, to be able to scale their solutions. It's a moment for us to acknowledge that young people face a double threat of seeing and feeling the impact of climate change today, but also to even see this ripple effect in the future at a much bigger scale. We are heading towards an uncertain future, and young people are not just living in a moment of panic, but also in a moment of hope, where through radical innovations, we are very hopeful that the future can be secured if resources are deployed the way that is needed to really drive and scale solutions. In countries where adaptation is needed the most, funding is also limited. In countries where vulnerabilities are high, access to technical capacity is limited. Through this innovation fund, it is a moment to draw on these available resources, to increase technical capacities, to increase access to funding, and to be able to drive solutions needed for areas where adaptation is a critical need to secure lives and protect ecosystems. I look forward to an exciting launch, and I look forward to young people taking advantage of this moment and be able to drive their solutions and be at the core and at the heart of climate adaptation action at the global scale. We need to adapt for the future of us and for the future of generations to come. Thank you.
Dear all, it is an honor for me to be part of the launch of this exciting initiative, call it Adaptation Fund climate innovation accelerators. In this time of multiple crises, where communities like mine are suffering from climate change and from COVID and its sanitarian and economic consequences, resilience is more than needed. It is time to scale up effort for adaptation. And that is why I welcome this new initiative from the Adaptation Fund, which is an instrument dear to my heart. In climate change policies, we are used to consider that innovation and technology will help us to defeat climate change and adapt to its impact. But we tend to believe that innovation rely only to a big companies, big city, and big money. It is true. Big companies, big cities, rich countries have a key role and a huge responsibility in defining solutions to the problem that they have created. But in my communities and everywhere in the developing world, we have thousands of innovators who create solutions to climate adaptation because they live with it. In the Sahel, we use indigenous people's traditional knowledge for seasonal weather forecasts or to identify crops resilient to drought. My grandmother is, for instance, more useful than a group of research that want to develop sustainable and resilient agriculture because she knows better her environment. But she doesn't have access to resources and mean to implement her solutions. My brothers and sisters of the Pacific have traditional knowledge very useful to prevent hurricane and adapt after they are hit. All over the world, people are innovating and they need help. They need resources. This is why this initiative of the Adaptation Fund, it's right on time, 5 years after the Paris Agreement, when we all face violent climate impact. We launched this tool to provide a small grant to those who really need it. Supporting this innovator, indigenous peoples, local communities, and civil society initiatives can contribute to save lives and to implement the SDGs, giving to peoples who are impacted the key to build their own solution. Thank you so much, and looking forward to see the first project impact changing lives.